we've got another Dragon-Fall chat here with Chris from Slow Death Games. Chris, let's do more of a deep dive into Wild in the Streets. So, Wild in the Streets is the first game you did, and it's what introduced me to your company. So, we were talking about, kind of did an overview in the other video before that it's, different genre kids kind of duking it out. What were the first factions that you did for it?
The first factions we did when we were playtesting were straight edge kids, crust punks, and skinheads.
Got it. That seems like a good holy trinity to launch with. Yeah. And so with each faction that you do, and how many do you have now?
There are 7 right now.
That's fantastic. So do you come up with like a playstyle variation with them more? Or the idea of like, I just really want to utilize this genre? Like, what's the chicken, what's the egg there?
Well, I think about what I want to do first based on the miniatures. So like for the goths, I was like, okay, I want to have these things for the goths, like these specific miniatures, and this is what I want them to look like. And then I thought about, well, if goths are going to go fight somebody, how would they fight? And then I based the rules on that. So like for the goths, I made them all really weak. Like I'm sure, there's lots of tough goths, but when you think about goths, you think of like very just like scrawny, weak people.
Slow motion bird dancing. Yeah.
The seaweed dance.
Yeah. So when you play, and we should get into some rules nitty-gritty in a second. That's never my forte with this stuff. But I do kind of like the touchy-feely faction stuff. When you play, Chris, what faction are you generally playing as?
I usually play the straight edge faction, but it depends on who I'm playing with. So my favorites are the straight edge and the crust punks. Those are my 2 favorite factions.
Okay.
But if I get first choice when we're deciding who's going to play what, I usually play the straight edge faction.
So what is it? I'm sorry. What is it about those factions that speaks to you the most?
Well, because I'm still straight edge after all these years, so that speaks to me. And the crust punks, because man, I love crusty hardcore. I just don't like the fans.
You don't want to go to the shows, but you want to put on the record, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've been there, man. I've been there.
Yeah.
But it's not like so that's more of a pulling at your heart and mind than the play style. So is there?
Yeah.
Okay. And so give me an idea of what the different, like, I almost called them teams. It's kind of like a team. Like what they would go like what's a different faction like play style that gives them a little extra flavor?
Sure. The like the goths, there's a lot of them, but they have a lower amount of wounds, so they're easier to kill. But there's more of them. The skinheads, there's less of them, but they hit a lot harder. The crust punks are good at avoiding being hit. And the straight edge gang is pretty much just the average. They're average at everything.
Okay. And there's you just did the cyber goths too, right?
Yeah, they're part of the goth gang.
Okay.
What other factions? What are the other?
There's a metal faction, straight edge, punks, skinheads, roller derby girls, goths, murder cult girls, and I'm drawing a blank on the last one. I'm sorry, but yeah, those are the factions.
For the metal one, Sam Lenz is a mini, isn't he?
Yeah. I met him at Adepticon. I forget what year, but he walked past our booth and he saw the flyers because we had a backdrop behind us that was all old flyers, and he saw them and he started talking to me because of that. He didn't even notice that we had miniatures, and then he saw the miniatures, and then we started talking about that, and he's like, "Oh, you should have a miniature," because at that time we didn't have a metal gang. And he's like, "Oh, you should have a miniature of such and such thing." I was like, "All right, well, if you want to pose for a miniature, we'll do it." And And then he took some pictures of himself, and we made miniature of him.
He is a barbarian, so it works perfect.
Yeah.
Does he have an axe in that one?
Yeah, he's holding
no.
an axe. Yeah.
That's the axe that he won for winning the Dragon-Fall painting competition years back. So it feeds back into the Dragon-Fall. That's pretty great. So yeah, there was I think they just started doing flax after a while, but for a couple of years you'd get a big old battle axe. So yeah, feeds back to Dragon-Fall. What do you know? Yeah, he won 2 years in a row, and then he bowed out of the competition, being like, I don't want to just have a three-peat dynasty and just ruin people's time, which is good of him.
He's a great painter.
Oh yeah, I've heard. So Josh, what do you want to know about Wild in the Streets? Have you played?
So I've actually never played it or read the rules. So if it's only a 2-page rule set, can you give us kind of a quick rundown of?
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay, so the game uses D10s, and it also uses cards that have the stats for all the models. The way that you set up and figure out whose turn it is, you shuffle all the cards together. So there's a card for each figure. Well, some of the cards have 2 or 3 figures attached to them, but you shuffle all those up and then you flip them over. And as you flip that one over, that one activates.
Oh, cool.
So it's random activation, and so you don't know like when your guy's going to come up or which of your guys are going to come up. You can fight, you can throw things at people. There's virtually no record keeping thing. The only thing you really have to keep a record of is number of wounds, and things either have 1, 2, or 3 wounds. So it's not like you're keeping track of a ton of stuff. Sure. There's no ammo when you're throwing. Like you don't have to worry about like, oh, is this guy carrying something he can throw? It's like, well, there's always a rock you can pick up or a broken bottle and throw that. So you, when you hit somebody like you're going to fight, you roll and add your fight score. They roll and add their dodge score. Whoever has the higher number succeeds. So you either hit somebody or they dodge the punch. And the same thing with throwing. You throw it, add your throw score. They add their dodge. And that's pretty much it. That's the rules. Everything is modified in the game by the scenario that you're playing. Or there's things called event cards, which you pay for those in points like you would pay for the models. And the event cards all do different specific things. Like they give you +1 to hit, or they give your enemy -1 to dodge, or they can stop your enemy from activating. Like there's cards that like one is called I can't remember the exact words on the title, but I think it's throwing marbles on the floor. And when that card activates, like if someone is playing Roller Digger Girls, their card flips over, you go, oh, I throw marbles on the floor, so that card can no longer activate. So basically knocks that model out for the turn.
So are those cards like in your hand and you can play them at any time, or do they get shuffled into the?
No, those are in your hand, and you can play one. Each player can play 1 per turn.
Okay.
Yeah. And the game is not for anybody under 18 because there are things like there's a homemade speed card where if you take a wound, you can instead do a bunch of, you're all jacked up on speed so you don't feel it. And I don't advocate the use of speed or any other drugs. I just thought it was funny for the game. So yeah, if you're under 18, don't play.
Don't play. Don't do drugs, kids. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, even if you're over 18.
Try and stop me.
So that's
no, I was
that's
so that's so and the 2-page rules are a free PDF download on your website.
Yes, it's a free
Correct.
PDF. If you go to slowdeathgames.com, you can download it for free. We are going to publish a book at some point. I'm sorry?
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
I was going to ask. Like, yeah.
We're going to do a book. It's just it's hard to spread a 2-page book over 50 pages or whatever, or a 2-page PDF over 50 pages. So we'll do a book, and the book will have a lot more in it and a lot more options than just the very basic rules.
Oh, cool. So, and I'm looking forward to that because it's like it would kind of be like an either or. You can decide because right now the scenarios, which are a big part, you can get them in some in Tooth Chipper, and then are there other available
Yeah, there's
scenarios?
some in our Facebook page,
Okay.
in the Wild and Street. Yeah, and then there's
That's
people who are
why I didn't
sending
know
us.
about it because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hate Facebook more than anything in the world. So.
yeah. If you go to Facebook and use it just for a very specific thing like a game, it's not so bad. But yeah, the only reason I have a Facebook account is for Slow Death games.
Sure. Yeah. The only reason I have it is for when I was doing a game company and now the charity thing. So speaking of tooth, did I read that there's going to be another tooth chipper that they're working on?
Yeah. Nick Barron, who approached me to do the first tooth chipper, is doing a second tooth chipper. And I'm not sure where exactly we're at with that. I think it'll be out by the end of the year, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. So Nick Barron from Breaker Press Games.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you just did a restock. Are there any more minis in the pipeline, like another faction, or more minis for any of the faction?
Yeah, I've actually. I'm looking over at my shelf where the minis are. I've got 7 on the shelf that are ready to go to the caster.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's some new crust punks. There's some new skinheads, and there's some from a new faction that are going to be released.
So and they're pewter tin alloy minis.
Yeah.
And they're all 1 part too, which is like that I've seen.
The majority of them are 1 part. A couple of them are 2 part.
Yeah, it's good. It's like, and they're not so big that you're probably having like pinning fiascos and stuff like that or anything.
No.
Yeah. So So what? So a lot of people probably don't know the. So when things go, so you're going to send them to the caster. They're going to make the mold, and you have a probably 2-month pipeline. Do you just release them, or you do a special event?
Well,
not that you can.
We've been doing Kickstarters for all the releases so far, except for the last release. We did some graffiti writers. Didn't do a Kickstarter for that one, but normally we do a Kickstarter just to get the word out, because there are a lot of people that buy the miniatures that don't play Wild in the Streets, which is a sad thing. But there's people who are buying the miniatures because there's not a lot of useful civilian miniatures that aren't boring.
Just a guy in a suit and a tie.
Yeah.
A stroller. Yeah.
So we actually a lot of people are buying the miniatures to use in like zombie games or their role playing games or whatever. So it's cool.
I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see it. So with that, so we're looking at, because it's a Kickstarter release. Basically, as soon as you have those in your hands, they're going out to the general public as well.
Yeah. We've delivered earlier on time with all our Kickstarters.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Very, very impressive.
Well, because we plan them ahead and we have realistic times. Like, there's a lot of Kickstarters that do deliver on time or early. You just don't hear about those ones. You hear about the ones that deliver late. And it's, maybe somebody is, they don't have very good idea of how much time things take, or there's a problem like, hey, the caster said I'd get this in March and here it is October, what's going on. So
I've noticed that sculptor sabotage has been a thorn in my particular side for the late Kickstarters too. So
yeah,
I'm sure you had a few sculpts you never got, and it's a sad occasion.
Yeah, there is a sculptor who's sitting on probably 5 or 6 sculpts that we'll never get.
We're gonna have to rough them up.
Yeah, I mean they're done. He sent me pictures of them, but like, hey, can you send me those? And just radio silence.
Oh wow, yeah. I had a guy, and I'm sorry to get off topic here, but we had a guy disappear for about a year and a half, and then demand for him to send them. All of a sudden, they're done. We hadn't heard from him for a year and a half. We'd already gotten them made elsewhere. And then he's like, oh, these are, and we're like, yeah, totally want 10 new miniatures. And he's like, oh, but these are my new rates in the last year and a half. We're like, No, thank you, man. Like, it was like double. I was like, cool. You are a worthwhile person. You should give yourself a raise, but not when you take a year and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you had kind of some of that stuff, but it's good that you're. I think with continued Kickstarter success, you kind of have to be able to show that because there's that little blurb at the bottom that's just like our challenges and pitfalls or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think if you can be like, yeah, almost next to nothing, it's an auto click for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
with Wild in the Streets, so you've been doing it for 5 years, and you've got a pretty robust miniatures line. You've got a 50-page book that you're working on. Is there anything else in the pipeline, or is like, I mean, it's a lot of stuff. So you can be like, oh no,
Yeah.
that's about it.
We want to get into terrain. We want to start releasing more terrain. We've got a couple of terrain pieces now, but we want to start releasing more.
Okay.
Because there's a lack of good modern terrain. So we want to
and especially to the correct scale. You know, like if you can get some neat like terrain O scale or whatever it's called, but it's just always a little off. So like having it paired to the minis is, that's why.
Yeah, and it's also terrain that we can sell to other people who play modern games.
Sure.
So yeah, because I've noticed that a lot of modern terrain is either like bombed out because it's made for zombie apocalypse type stuff, or it's like farmhouses and things that aren't in a city.
Altogether too pristine. Yeah, I hear you on that. So it sounds like for the terrain stuff, so with the miniatures, you've got still a pretty robust sales for general purpose, not Wild in the Streets, and that kind of even fleshes that out too. I think it's good to diversify and kind of have that, like general purpose sales, especially when we have conventions again.
Yeah, and also I believe that like any sales that go to people who don't play our game still help. If it's enough people are playing another game, that's great. And what's the phrase? Rising tide lifts all boats. I think. Yeah.
It's like a cross pollination.
Yeah. So like anybody who's buying other stuff and playing other games, or buying our things, playing other games, or using other miniatures and playing our games with the free rules, that's great. Like it helps everyone.
You're not going to tell them no?
Why would I tell people no?
So so you just did the restock. We talked about that in the other video. When this video goes up, hopefully you still have them. I mean, it would be a real happy accident if you sold out in the next month. I'd be happy for you if that happened. That's a lot of pewter to move. So where can we buy and support or just check out Wild in the Streets?
If you go to our web store, which is slowdeathgames.bigcartel.com, check them there. We have a website at slowdeathgames.com where you can download the rules. Majority of the activity from people who play is either on the Wild in the Streets Facebook page or the Slow Death Games Discord. Okay.
And how do you get to become a part of the Discord? Is that like an invite only thing? It's not like a
no. There's a link to it on the Slow Death Games Facebook page, and also on the Wild in the Streets Facebook page. There's a link, like one of those always allowed links that you can click on and hop into our Discord.
That sounds so much more appealing to me. Like I don't have to see the shotgun blast of political opinions and then click on where I want to go. I'd rather just pop into that Discord and have a good time with my buddy Chris. And so there's the tabletop simulator stuff. Do you have a link to that anywhere as well if somebody wants to check it out in 2020?
No, if you go to Steam and go to the tabletop simulator thing, search for I think it's Wild in the Streets 4x4 map. I think we'll get it. And I apologize because I'm not good at video games, so I don't know like how this stuff works. Somebody else set it up and they're like, "Hey, I made this. Do you want to play?" And I was super stoked that somebody took the time to do that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And I think that's a good way of getting the word out in these days. Because in the before times, we'd see you at Adepticon and get our demo, or walk past, and somebody would just like your banner and check it out. But now in present day, like, it's good to branch out and have those options, even if they're
Yeah.
not as good as we like,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely miss being around the table with people. So tabletop simulator is filling that niche, sort of.
Well, if you're lonely, I'm glad we got to spend the afternoon together.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I get to spend time with you too, man.
Josh, you got any Wild in the Streets questions for our boy Chris?
No, I think they've all been answered already.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna click
grabbing the rules from the website and giving them.
Yeah, good. Click download, get that PDF. I don't think it'll fill up your hard drive. I think it'll be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, one of the things about having a simple miniatures game is it's appealing to people who have maybe never played a miniatures game or want to and don't know how to get into it. We've had a lot of people, because we used to play at the local stores. We'd do like a Sunday night game thing, and people would show up, and like it'd be punk kids who'd show up and say, like, I know about these things and I'm super excited about it, but I saw this, I wanted to play Warhammer, but when I saw that the rule book is 200 pages and then I had to buy another rule book for my army and then this and this, and like I put it all down. But then I saw your game and it was, 2 paragraphs, and I can understand that. Not saying these people are dumb, just it's
speaking of local, you're by San Diego, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had reached out to you when I was in a band like a year and a half that played Tijuana, and that was interesting. The other band we played with decided to stay the night, and their van was stolen because they stayed the night and left it Main Street, van with a bunch of gear in Tijuana, and that's a no. That's a no-go. Yeah,
that's awful.
Sadly, but we crossed the border that night. Had a wonderful rest of the trip. But anyway, thanks. I think we got some exciting information on Wild in the Streets. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, at least check it out. Anyone watching this, you've gotten this far in the video, you should be checking out Wild in the Streets. Like, you've already overcommitted. Like, go for it. Any passing statements, or just party on, dudes?
No, just give Wild in the Streets a try. We'd love for you to try to play it, and love to hear your feedback on it. Even if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Love to hear what you think about it.
Go in that Facebook group and just lambast Chris. He'll enjoy it. But thanks for your time, man. We're gonna be talking about some Star Breach in a minute, so you can check that out in another video.